I want to clear something up about peptides because the noise around them right now is genuinely frustrating, and it's coming from both directions. Peptides are signaling molecules. That's it. They tell your body to do something it already knows how to do. Produce more growth hormone, regulate appetite, repair tissue, modulate the immune system. They don't override your body's systems, they don't replace hormones, they signal. And that mechanism is fundamentally different than the category of drugs most people are worried about when they hear the word peptide. The idea that peptides are some fringe experimental category is directly contradicted by the FDA approval list, which is what this video is about. When most people talk about peptides for weight loss right now, they're usually talking about Retatrutide. And I'm gonna cover that one at the end because it deserves its own section. But I also wanna cover Semaglutide and tirzepatide, Ozempic and Mounjaro, which are GLP-1 peptides that are fully FDA approved and among the most prescribed drugs in the world right now. Because that context matters for everything that follows. Now we're gonna get into the full list of peptides that are FDA approved in a minute, but quickly, there's one point I need to make. People are using they're not FDA approved as a reason to dismiss peptides entirely. And I understand where that concern comes from to an extent. FDA approval is a meaningful signal of safety and efficacy, but it's not the whole picture. Did you know that supplements aren't FDA approved? That's right, your vitamins, fish oil, protein powder, magnesium. None of those go through FDA approval. And no one is fearmongering about those. The FDA approval framework applies to drugs seeking approval for specific medical indications. It doesn't cover everything that is safe and evidence-backed. What FDA approval does tell you is that the substance has gone through rigorous clinical trials for a specific use case. What it doesn't tell you is that unapproved substances are dangerous. These two things are different because there are over 7,000 peptides. So yes, not all 7,000 of those are approved. There are some that have been studied rigorously and are approved for certain conditions. There are some that are currently in the process. And then there are others which haven't been looked at all. There are absolutely people using peptides irresponsibly, sourcing from unreliable places, using without research, stacking things they don't understand. That is a real concern, and it's exactly why I started my peptide series. The goal is to give you accurate information so you can make informed decisions for yourself, not to promote peptides uncritically, and not to dismiss them because of misinformation. But now let's get into the list. The first peptide that's already FDA approved, and would you believe it, has been for over 100 years, is insulin. Insulin has been approved and clinically used since 1922. And yes, it's a peptide. It's one of the greatest medicines in human history. Billions of doses, millions of lives saved, and over 100 years of safety data. And I mention this one first because when people talk about peptides lately, they're talking about it like there's nothing behind them. Like it's this new, untested category. When in reality, we've been using peptide therapy for over a decade. This framework, it's not new. The second and third peptides are Semaglutide and tirzepatide. And I'm gonna lump them together here. Semaglutide, sold as Ozempic, is for type 2 diabetes, and Wegovy is for weight loss. Semaglutide received FDA approval in 2017. It's one of the most studied and prescribed drugs of the last decade. Tens of millions of prescriptions, extensive real-world safety data on top of the clinical trial base. And then we have tirzepatide, sold as Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for weight loss. It's a dual agonist, targeting both GLP-1 and GIP receptors. It's FDA approved and showing superior weight loss outcomes to semaglutide in head-to-head trials. These are the peptides that most people are thinking of when they're referring to GLP-1s for weight loss. They are fully approved, have robust clinical data behind them, and are widely available through prescription. And then we have Tesamorelin. This one is highly relevant to the metabolic health conversation, and I actually did a full video on just Tesamorelin a few weeks ago, so I'll link that above now. Tesamorelin received FDA approval in 2010 for the reduction of excess abdominal fat in HIV patients. It works by stimulating your body to create more of its own growth hormone in a natural pattern, rather than injecting growth hormone directly. The clinical data shows a huge reduction in visceral fat, which, if you know anything about, you will know it's highly inflammatory. It's a driver of insulin resistance, and it has 15 years of clinical use. For the metabolic health audience, this is one of the most relevant peptides on this list. But, and this might surprise some people, not all peptides are for weight loss. The next one is Melanotan 1. It received FDA approval in 2019 for a rare light sensitivity disorder. It works by stimulating melanin production to protect the skin from light-induced pain. An important note here, don't get it confused with Melanotan 2. Melanotan 2 is a related compound that is studied but not approved for human use yet. And this is one that has been widely circulated on the gray market. And actually for aesthetic reasons, because it makes you very tanned. But these aren't the same thing, so I just want to be clear about that. Both are a peptide though. Next is Linaclotide, which received FDA approval in 2012. It received approval for IBS with constipation and also chronic idiopathic constipation. There have been multiple large phase 3 trials, and this one is relevant to the gut health audience. It works by activating receptors in the gut lining. It increases fluid secretion and decreases pain signaling, which I think is pretty incredible. Now, it's less relevant to the metabolic health conversation, but worth including because gut health and insulin resistance are directly connected. And this is another example of an approved peptide that people don't realize is a peptide. And then we have growth hormone. Growth hormone has been used clinically since 1985 for growth hormone deficiency. It has FDA approval for multiple indications. And this is worth noting here because it's relevant to the Tesamorelin conversation. Injecting growth hormone directly bypasses your body's own regulatory systems and suppresses natural production over time. Tesamorelin, on the other hand, stimulates your own growth hormone production instead. And that distinction matters for long-term use. It's part of why Tesamorelin has a more favorable profile. Next up is PT141. This received FDA approval in 2019 for hypoactive sexual desire disorder. And this one's relevant to women specifically. Low libido is one of the most common and least discussed symptoms of hormonal imbalance and perimenopause. And a lot of women don't realize that there's a peptide that's FDA approved. And then we have Thymosin Alpha-1. And don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz at the end. You don't need to remember all these. And this one's interesting because no, it's not FDA approved, but it is approved in 35 other countries. It has over 40 years of trials for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, sepsis, and cancer support. And this is a good example of why FDA approval isn't the only lens you should evaluate evidence through. The clinical data on Thymosin Alpha-1 is extensive. The next is SS31, and this one's more recent. It received FDA accelerated approval in September 2025 for Barth syndrome, a rare mitochondrial disease. And this is one of the most interesting from a longevity perspective. SS31 targets mitochondrial function, specifically protecting the inner mitochondrial membrane and improving energy production in cells. The broader implications for mitochondrial health and aging are an active area in research. And like I said, this is one of the most recently approved. And finally, let's touch on the one that everyone's talking about right now, Retatrutide. This one's coming up a lot in conversations around GLP-1s right now. Now, we spoke about Semaglutide, which is a single agonist. It only targets GLP-1. We spoke about tirzepatide, which is a dual agonist. It targets GLP-1 and GIP. But Retatrutide is a triple agonist. It targets GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. Early trial data showed over 20% body weight reduction, which is beyond what semaglutide or tirzepatide achieve. It is currently undergoing phase 3 trials and not yet FDA approved. And I want to be clear here about what that means. No, it's not approved. No, it's not available through prescription. It's available through the research-only gray market only. And that does carry some considerations for sourcing, quality control, and safety. We don't have as much data on Retatrutide as we do semaglutide. Now, I've been transparent about my own Retatrutide use. I covered that in a different video, which I'll link above if you want to know more about my experience, the benefits, the side effects. I talk about everything in that video. My goal has always been to give you the information you need to make your own informed decisions. The FDA approval process takes time. Semaglutide went through it, tirzepatide went through it. All the other peptides we spoke about today went through it. And that process exists for a good reason. And the data coming out of the trials is compelling enough that most researchers expect it to complete that process, and complete that process soon. So in summary, there are peptides that have been FDA approved and clinically used for decades, for centuries even. There are peptides approved in other countries with extensive trial data. There are peptides in large stage trials with strong evidence behind them. And there are peptides being used in the gray market with varying degrees of evidence and significant variations in quality and sourcing. So yes, these do all fall under one category, but we shouldn't be lumping them all together. Don't just dismiss all peptides because some are not approved, because some people are not using them correctly. Understand the mechanism, do your research, understand the evidence, understand the risks, and make an informed decision. Now, if you want me to go deeper into any peptides, either ones we covered today or ones I haven't talked about yet, let me know in the comments down below. I do have videos on several ones. I have one on GHKCU, Tesamorelin, as I said, Retatrutide, as I said. So those will be linked down below as well. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.